You turn on the evening news, hands shaking as you hold your coffee. 2 weeks since your baby girl vanished. 2 weeks of putting up posters, calling her friends, begging police to care. The anchor's voice feels distant at first, and then slams into focus. Breaking news from Saint Petersburg. Your cup crashes to the floor as images flash across the screen. You're Karina, your poet, your dreamer. They're talking about remains found in garbage dumps, about a stew served to unsuspecting roommate, about 2 men who claimed they were hungry. You collapse, your heart exploding, the world spinning away. This can't be real. Your daughter cannot be a headline, can't be a horror story, can't be gone. But she is, and you learned it from the TV. This is the sickening story of Karina Barduchian. Trigger warning, this case is very graphic. Let's talk about dreams first. Before anything else, before the headlines that would shock Russia, before the system failures that would expose deep institutional cracks, there was just a 16-year-old girl who wrote poetry in her bedroom. Karina Barduchian's room still had stuffed animals on the bed. That detail matters. It matters because it shows how young she really was, how much life she still had ahead of her, and how brutally that future was stolen. The year was 2009. While the world was reeling from a global financial crisis, Karina was hustling hard in Saint Petersburg, Russia. Between classes, she'd posted promotional flyers around the city to earn extra money. She had big dreams: theater, school, becoming an actress, maybe even making it to America someday. Her notebooks were filled with the kind of raw, honest poetry that only teenagers can write. The kind that hits different when you realize they would be her last words on paper. But here's where the story gets dark, like systemically dark. The kind of dark that makes you question not just individual actions, but entire societal structures. Karina was into alternative music, particularly heavy metal. No shade, literally millions of teens are. But at one of these concerts, she met somebody who would change and ultimately end her life. Maxim Golovitch was 19, a part-time butcher, and the lead singer of a gothic band called Sherry. On paper, those details might sound like the start of some indie romance. They weren't. Let's pause for a reality check. Maxim had already been institutionalized for mental health issues. He had a record for animal cruelty. Red flags were literally everywhere. But here's the thing about being 16. You don't see red flags the same way adults do. Sometimes you don't see them at all. Karina's mom, Nadia, saw through them though. She tried to warn her daughter. She would later tell the media, "He seemed to play with her emotions. He was too old for her, and he gave me the creeps." What's more, Maxim was dating someone else at the time, but he was keeping Karina in his proximity just in case. Nadia couldn't be more disgusted by this guy, and she let her daughter know. But if you've ever been a teenager in love, you know how those warnings typically land. The more Nadia told her daughter to stay away, the more she seemed to like him. The system failed Karina long before January 19th, 2009. It failed her when it didn't flag Maxim's concerning behavior patterns. It failed her when it didn't provide better support systems for vulnerable teens. It failed her when society normalized older guys pursuing teenage girls. But let's talk about that night, the last night Karina would be alive. It all started with a phone call. Karina asked her mom if she could stay at a friend's house to work on a history project. Classic teen move, right? We've all been there, but Nadia's response hits different now. "I told her I'd rather she get a bad grade than stay out." Karina's reply, "Mom, don't worry. I'll be home by 7 a.m. I have a head on my shoulders." Those words would haunt Nadia forever because Karina wasn't going to study. She'd been invited to a small gathering at an apartment shared by Maxim, his friend Yuri Maznov, and a woman named Ekaterina Zainovaya. But here's where it gets truly chilling. Text messages later revealed that before Karina arrived, Maxim had referred to her as meat when talking to his friends. The meat is coming. That's how the 19-year-old gothic butcher saw her. Let that sink in. While Karina Karina was probably picking out what to wear, excited about spending time with someone she had feelings for. He was literally dehumanizing her in texts. The next morning when 7 a.m. came and went without Karina, Nadia's world began to crumble. She did everything right, called Karina's phone repeatedly, contacted all her friends, went to the police. She even told the officers at the front desk to research the guy named Max. She'd read her daughter's diary in a desperate attempt to piece the clues together herself. She knew that he was bad news and that if Karina had disappeared, Maxim had something to do with it. But here's another system failure. The police initially treated it like a standard teenage runaway case, because apparently that's what society does, dismisses teenage girls' lives as disposable. Here's the brutal reality. Despite what many believe, there is no mandatory waiting period to report someone missing. Not in Russia, not in the US, not anywhere. Yet police departments worldwide often operate on an unofficial wait-and-see approach when a teenager disappears. Why? Because society has normalized the idea that teens, especially teen girls, are just being dramatic or rebellious. In Russia in 2009, like many places today, there was a toxic pattern of dismissing missing teen cases in those crucial first hours. Police would often say things like, oh, she's probably just at a friend's house, or she'll come home when she wants attention. This is frustrating and it's deadly, because here's the devastating truth. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the first 48 hours after a disappearance are the most critical for finding someone alive. For 2 weeks, Nadia lived every parent's worst nightmare. She plastered the city with flyers. She begged for information. She probably barely slept. Meanwhile, the truth was worse than any nightmare could prepare her for. It has been 16 years, and Nadia can't stop thinking about the way her daughter was found. The investigation would later reveal that Maxim and his friend Yuri had planned to do this. This wasn't a crime of passion or a drunken mistake. They waited until the other party guests left, leaving only Ekaterina in the apartment. Then, Maxim invited Karina to take a bath with him. Karina's death wasn't quick. It wasn't painless. She slowly drowned, all the while fighting back, crying, and begging her so-called friend to stop. And what happened afterward shows a level of depravity that's honestly hard to comprehend. That night, Ekaterina was in her bed trying to sleep because she had work the next morning. Through the walls, she could hear splashing from the bathroom where Maxim and Karina had gone. She'd later testify in court, "I was sleepy but heard splashes of water and some noise there, but was not worried." At one point, concerned by the sounds, she got up to check what was happening. But Yuri stopped her in the hallway, telling her to go back to bed. It seemed odd, but not alarmingly so. Remember, these were her roommates, people she trusted. They had joked earlier about killing Karina, but as Ekaterina would later tell the court, of course, I couldn't believe for a second that they were serious. The next morning, Ekaterina went to work like any normal day. It was when she got back that it finally dawned on her. Karina was still inside that house, though not in the same form that she'd come. She found Maxim and Yuri still there, hungover, watching TV. They had prepared what appeared to be a normal stew with meat, potatoes, and onions. They offered her some, she accepted, having no reason to suspect anything sinister. She sat there eating what she thought was a regular meal with her roommates. It was Ekaterina, feeling sicker than she ever thought she could be, who rang up the police and told them what her housemates had confessed to. Here's what prosecutor Andrei Levrenko said. They cut the body of the victim into several pieces, eating some of them and throwing the others into the bin. They cooked her meat and served up the meal with potatoes. They were interrogated and explained the murder by saying they were desperate to eat. Sergei Strelin, deputy head of Saint Petersburg criminal investigations, reported they confessed their guilt straight away. They explained that they were hungry and drunk. Hungry and drunk. The sheer absurdity of their claimed motive exposes something far darker about human nature than than mere desperation. Saint Petersburg in 2009 wasn't some famine-struck wasteland, but a modern metropolis with 24-hour stores, fast food, and delivery services on every corner. These men had money, enough for rent, alcohol, phones, and band equipment. This was never about hunger. When someone claims they murdered because they were hungry, they're revealing something profoundly disturbing about their view of human life. They're saying that to them, a living, breathing teenage girl with dreams, hopes, and a waiting mother was worth less than a trip to the corner store. When investigators pushed them on why they didn't just buy food, they had no real answer, because there was no answer that could make sense of this senseless brutality. You don't methodically plan a murder, execute it with cold precision, and scatter remains across a city because you're hungry. You do it because something fundamentally human is missing inside you. The world was shocked, because it's hard to think of the kind of emptiness that can end a life on a whim, with no more than the thought of ordering takeout. Now, people were waiting for Maxim and Yuri's trial with some sort of morbid curiosity. Could they even understand these monsters if they saw them in real life? Both men later recanted these confessions. During the trial, they claimed their initial confessions were coerced through another blatant lie. And the trial was delayed after one of the jurors got sick watching photos of the stew. People were gagging or in tears, but these two just sat there, lying, without expressions on their faces. Maybe they were even proud of themselves. This case exemplifies how violence creates not just primary victims like Karina, but secondary victims like Ekaterina, who must now live with the knowledge that she was unknowingly pulled into something horrific. Her testimony gives us a window into how predators can often operate in plain sight, making their actions seem normal to those around them until it's too late. During the trial, both Maxim and Yuri showed zero remorse. They sat there stone-faced, while Nadia had to hear the details of her daughter's final moments, not from compassionate authorities, but from watching the news. Imagine that, learning how your child died from a TV broadcast. Nadia also had to listen to how her daughter's organs were found stacked away in Maxim's fridge. Nadia said during her victim impact statement, "Our lives are ruined by Karina's death and the horrible way that she died. They were so calm, so matter-of-fact as they told how they killed her. I still don't understand why they did it. I brought her up to be trusting, but I was wrong. Life is empty without her, and the pain of letting her down will never leave me." Both men were convicted. Maxim got 19 years and Yuri got 18. They were sent to a facility called the Colony, known for its harsh conditions. But here's where the story takes another dark turn. In 2017, Maxim was found dead in his cell, leaving behind a cryptic note. "I have finished my life in this body. The time has come to go away in order to be reborn as a new person." Even in death, he made it about himself. Not about Karina, not about the dreams he stole, not about the mother whose life he destroyed. Yuri continues to serve his sentence, but for Nadia and for all those who loved Karina, the real sentence is lifelong. It's the birthday celebrations that will never happen, the graduation that never came, the career that never started, the whole life that was stolen. If you can believe it, there's a twist that makes this case even darker. While Karina's mom was putting up missing persons posters in Saint Petersburg, something all too similar was happening just a few hundred miles away. It started with a lost phone. September 2017, some construction workers found it. No password. You know that moment when you find someone's phone and debate whether to snoop? They snooped. What they found would break the internet. Selfies of a man with human hands, posing with them, grinning at the camera like it was just another Instagram post. The phone belonged to Dmitry Bakshev and his wife, Natalia, a former nurse. When cops raided their place, they walked into a literal house of horrors. Picture your messiest friend's room. Now make it 100 times worse. But it wasn't just clutter. Every drawer held secrets. They found 10 phones in the kitchen. Each one was like a digital diary of death. The worst photo, a human head served on a Christmas plate, decorated with oranges, olives for eyes, lemon for a nose, dated December 1999. Yeah, 1999. Let that sink in. While Karina was still playing with toys, writing poetry about her future, these people were already hunting, and they were caught in 2017, almost 20 years later. Their fridge looked normal from the outside. Inside, mason jars filled with human remains. A handwritten cookbook by Natalia on how to prepare people. An actual video titled Lessons for Cannibals. This was the real life of this couple. In front of a microwave, the officers found what they thought was a wig. It wasn't. When the officer picked it up, they discovered that it was, in fact, the scalped hair of one of Dimitri's victims. This is what his wife had to say about it.
Почему ты снял с человеческой головы скальп? Вы знаете дословный ответ. Она была похожа, ее волосы были похожи на твои. И чтобы с тобой такое не случилось, я решил это измельчить.
This is maybe the wildest part. When caught, the Bakshievs weren't even ashamed. Natalia straight up identified about 30 victims in those photos, named them, showed their before pictures. Every name matched someone who'd gone missing since '99. Their method was terrifyingly simple. Dating websites. They'd invite people over, spike their drinks, and you can guess the rest. Think about that next time you're swiping right. Their last victim was a waitress to Natalia who got jealous because her husband seemed too interested. While Natalia later tried claiming insanity, doctors found her completely sane. Twice. She knew exactly what she was doing. Natalia got 21 years, and Dimitri died in prison in 2020 from diabetes. His only possession? A drawing of Audrey Hepburn. Make it make sense. Same country, same time, different cities, different monsters. And that brings us to the scariest question of all. What's happening right now in apartments and houses around the world that we just don't know about yet? Today, Karina would have been 31. She might have written books of poetry. We'll never know. But here's what we do know. This story isn't just about one tragic night in 2009. It's about how society fails young women. It's about how we dismiss teenage girls' emotions and experiences. It's about how predators operate in plain sight while systems designed to protect the vulnerable just don't. To Karina, you were more than what happened to you. You were a daughter, a friend, a poet, a dreamer. Your story deserves to be told not for its shock value, but as a call for change, as a demand for better systems, better protection, better awareness. May your memory be a force for change. Thanks for watching, you guys. Leave a thoughtful comment below honoring Karina and all the people who have lost their lives at the hands of monsters. And before you go, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more crime videos. Stay safe.